guys, so I thought I'd make a quick video on my top 3 favorite improvisation exercises. Each of these exercises is designed to help you build and improve one particular aspect of improvisation, so that if you master all 3 exercises, you'll be well on your way to putting together an interesting and sophisticated solo. Now, these exercises can be done over any chord progression. So just pick whatever song you're currently learning and try and use these 3 exercises over that song's particular chord progression. Cool, so let's get into it. So the first exercise is called Melodic Continuity. This exercise is designed to force you to learn how to think quickly. All you need to do is improvise continuously over a particular chord progression. And the only rule is that you are not allowed to stop. So it doesn't really matter what you play as long as you just keep playing. Now, to begin with, play continuously using swung 8th notes. And when that gets too easy, you can upgrade to soloing continuously with triplets. So as I said earlier, this is a fantastic exercise because it forces you to think quickly. You don't have time to stop and think about what to play next. You just have to keep pushing through. So you have to quickly think about what scale you can use, what chord you're up to in the progression, what fingering to use, what ideas and improvisational techniques to use, and so on. And if you make a mistake, who cares? Just keep going. And all of these things are incredibly important when improvising, especially being able to just play through your mistakes and kind of cover them up as you're improvising. Indeed, thinking quickly enough is probably the hardest part of improvising. Now, as you keep practicing this way for a while, you'll soon find some hacks or shortcuts to make it easier. Repeating a phrase is one. If you're struggling to keep up, just keep repeating the same few notes over and over again. Chromatic scale runs are another. Again, if you're struggling to keep up with the beats, the tempo, just throw in a chromatic run, which is nice and easy, and it allows you rather, to just keep that rhythm going, which is what the purpose of this exercise is. The next exercise is called guide tone targeting. This exercise is designed to force you to follow the chord progression and resolve your phrases strongly. In this exercise, you play a short phrase, then pause, then another short phrase, then pause, then another short phrase, and pause, and so on. But the catch is, every single phrase has to end on a guide tone. That is the 3rd or the 7th of the chord that you're currently playing. So with this chord progression in the picture-in-picture, which is the one I've been playing, if I play a little phrase and end it in bar 2, the chord we have is an F7. So I have to end my phrase on the 3rd or the 7th of the F7, so either an A or an E flat. And so on for every single phrase. Right, so every single little phrase that I played there, I finished on a guide tone, on the 3rd or the 7th of the chord that I was playing at the time. And in this case, I made it simple for myself by playing a phrase over, say, bar 1 and finishing it on bar 2, so targeting the guide tone in bar 2, then playing a phrase over bar 3 and finishing it in bar 4, so playing a guide tone of the chord in bar 4. So I was sort of playing 2-bar phrases, so I sort of knew ahead of time where I was going to land and therefore what note I needed to play. And so hopefully you heard that finishing on a guide tone means you always resolve the phrase on a strong note, because you're really just duplicating one of the notes of the harmony. Now this is a brilliant exercise because, again, you're forced to know exactly where you are at any point in time, what chord you're on currently and what chord is coming up next. Indeed, you have to be able to think ahead by a bar or two in order to finish your phrase in the next bar, for example. Because if you start a short phrase in this bar, it's likely to finish in the next bar, so you have to know what the chord in the next bar is in order to hit the guide tone of that chord in the next bar. And so you have to gradually direct your phrase towards one of those guide tones. Kind of walk up or down to it, so you don't get sort of to a note and then you realize the guide tone's actually over here and you have to jump half an octave to get there. You really want to try and walk down to the guide tone and connect it smoothly. Another thing to look for when practicing this exercise is for the guide tone line. So the guide tones in a chord progression very often just stay the same or move up or down by a step as you're moving through the chords. So for example, in my particular chord progression that I was playing, one of the guide tone lines goes as follows. So we start on a C minor 7 chord and the first guide tone, let's say the 7th, is a B flat. Then it goes to the A, stays on the A, goes to the G, stays on the G, goes to the F sharp, down to the F. So that's a guide tone line in that when you look at it written out in sheet music, it's really just tracing out a straight line moving down. And the other guide tone, so I started on the 7th, if I start on the 3rd of my first chord, a similar thing happens. So that way, if I know where my guide tone line is and how it moves, it's actually quite easy to do this exercise because you just have to keep track of where that particular guide tone line is at any point in time and just kind of play around it. So. Right, so there I was quite clearly just targeting that guide tone line that moved down like that, and just playing around it and coming back to that note and just following it all the way through. And when you're comfortable doing that and you want to get a little bit more adventurous, then you can start targeting the natural 9th of each chord instead of a 3rd or a 7th. But again, it's the same exercise, we're just targeting a different note. And the natural 9th works particularly well over all chord types, and that'll really start sounding quite jazzy. Now the third and final improvisation exercise I've called repetition and transformation. And this exercise is designed to force you to link your phrases together logically. Now in this exercise, you have to play a phrase, any phrase at all, and then you repeat that exact same phrase, so you have to remember what it was, but you have to change one thing about that phrase. And it can be anything. You can change a note, you can change the rhythm, you can slow it down or speed it up, you can transpose the phrase to a different note, you can play it backwards or invert it, you can add ornamentals to it like a little grace note or something. Right, literally anything you want. But it has to be recognizable that it was kind of derived from that earlier phrase. Then play a different phrase and similarly repeat it, but change one thing. Or transform it, and so on. Right, so the first phrase I played was something like this. And then I repeated it, but changed one note, the last note. The next phrase was something like this. And then my transformation was that I played it backwards. Instead of descending chromatically, I ascended chromatically, using the same rhythm. My next phrase was something like this. That I transposed that phrase, the exact same phrase, down a semitone. And with my last phrase, I played something like... So the first note was a bit longer and the other two were short, and the second time I played it so that the first two notes were short and the last one was a bit longer, so I changed the rhythm. Right? Or something along those lines. And when you're comfortable with this, you can start repeating the same phrase 3 or 4 or 20 times, each time changing one thing about it. And this is actually an improvisation technique called Motivic development. So you create a motif and then you develop the motif as you go through the song. And it's really, really important and widely used in jazz. And that's it. Those are my top 3 improvisation exercises. If you can master each of these exercises over a number of different songs and chord progressions, you'll be able to think fast enough, follow the chord progression and resolve each phrase strongly, and link your phrases together logically through things like repetition and motivic development. And being able to do these things well will allow you to create a really professional, sophisticated, and decent solo. Cool, and that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and good luck with it. See ya!